First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you
Yes.
for coming to this public hearing on the issue of the budget that includes those citizens who have made comments to us. At this time, I want to call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you do the roll call?
Good evening, everyone. The roll call for today's special call meeting, September 2nd, 2020. Councilmember Rao.
Present. Present.
Madam Clerk? Madam Clerk?
She may have dropped off.
Okay.
This is Corey Adams, Deputy Clerk. Looks like Mrs. White is still in. Well, she just dropped off. So I'll start the roll call over, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
That's good. It's fine, Mr. Adams.
Okay, the Honorable Catherine Rao, District 1.
Present.
The Honorable Carmelita Gomes, District 2.
Present.
The Honorable Helen Z. Willis, District 3.
Present.
The Honorable Naima Gilliard, District 4.
Here.
The Honorable Corey A. Reeves, District 5.
Counted for.
The Honorable Councilmember Khalid.
Present.
And the Honorable Mark Baker.
Present.
Mr. Mayor and Council, you have a quorum.
Yes. Before I call the public hearing, let me just express my appreciation to all 7 of you who have worked diligently on one of the worst times that we have in government, and that's the time that we must decide what's on a budget. I also want to thank all of the participants from the community we've heard your thoughts, we read your emails. Thank you for taking the time out to be a part of this process. However, let me enlighten you that this process is a public hearing, and the law specifies, the state law specifies how a public hearing must go. In that, we do not respond to comments that are made in public hearing by law. We hear what you say, and then we use your judgment, that judgment, to make our decision as to what we need to do. We thank you for being cooperative. We thank you for bringing in your comments. We treasure them, we acknowledge them, and we want to do the best as we can in terms of a budget. So I thank God for all of you. I know that this council has gone through a lot to where we are here. And hopefully we'll get through some other things that will make South Fulton the greatest city in the state of Georgia. So at this time, thank you so much. At this time, I want to call the public hearing. I open the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question concerning what you just stated. You said that the public hearing will not allow us to respond by state law or by law. Are you referring to a local ordinance? Because a lot of the residents, that is a concern of theirs, that we are not responding in real time. Some of us are taking liberty to respond to our residents once we get the public comment and we reach directly back out to our residents. But my question to you, is that a local ordinance that we could change? Because I don't recall seeing a state law saying we can't give real-time responses.
Mr. Donald? Mr. Donald?
Yes, sir. So I would refer to the city attorney. I think it is the local law that says that once public comment is made, we are to provide for those relevant comments that require a response, that we are supposed to provide a response to them within a reasonable time. I believe it's like 30 days. I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but it's not handled in the public meeting. And so what we traditionally do, you know, if people say they like something or don't like something, we don't normally respond to those. Although for the millage rate, the city treasurer's office has provided insight into the potential impacts of individual bills to individual residents. But the actual normal activities is a staff person in the middle of the meeting, we go get their information and then provide a response. So let's say if a street light is out or something of that nature, we notify them when it's been rectified and provide that, and we include it in our public reports. But I believe that is a local ordinance that you can change, but I would defer to the city attorney on any of those legal interpretations and things of that nature.
And thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor, do you mind
For
if
your
the city attorney responds? I'm addressing
go.
you, Mayor.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to address you back. Thank you for correcting the fact of state law versus local ordinance. City attorney, would you opine on this, please?
Yeah, so that is correct. I think it's correct as Councilwoman Willis has indicated, and I think the mayor just agreed with her that she is correct. That there is no state law that prohibits the public comment or responses being not public comment, responses being given to public comments in real time during the meeting. Now you do have a section under your administration title. It's an ordinance that you've adopted that says that public comments shall be by speaker card at the start of the meeting. Now, if you would like to allow for responses to public comments, there's nothing that prohibits you from doing that. However, you would just need to collectively as a body say that we will allow for public comment responses during this session, and you can do that because those responses would be part of the topic that's being discussed today, and that we will allow it at a certain point during the meeting. But that's just something that you guys would have to collectively agree to do.
Thank you very much, County Attorney. Any further comment, Ms. Willis?
No, Mayor, I just think that if we do get a lot of public comments, because there was a lot of misinformation given out via a colleague's newsletter. And so we have a lot of confused residents. We have a lot of misinformation that went out. I just feel that, Mayor, based on the feedback we get from public comments, we may want to consider giving real-time responses. Thank you.
Okay, another housekeeping type thing, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir.
I didn't see the presentation by the city manager.
It's on the agenda. It's in the packet
Okay.
with the
Good.
millage rate.
Okay, I didn't see it on my agenda copy. I'm sorry.
It's all part
Okay,
of the millage rate.
Okay, with that being, okay, thank you. With that being said, I open the public hearing.
Okay, Mayor and Council, for the record, I received 42 comments. 3 does not relate to today's topic, so that leaves 39. 2 for and 37 against. And I will read the for the millage rate first. Betty Spicer, 7639 Waterlace Drive, District 4.
Madam Clerk, are you having difficulties?
I'm sorry, can you hear me? What you
Yes.
said?
Go ahead.
Betty Spicer,
Go
76.
ahead, Madam Clerk.
I'm talking, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Diane.
Okay. Betty,
Is everybody hearing her? No, does it? Okay, go ahead.
Betty Spicer, 7639 Waterlace Drive, District 4. Yes, please increase rates to increase property value, bring services and higher in business to our District 4. Tanya Spicer, 7639 Waterlace Drive, District 4. Yes, please increase rates to increase property value, bring services and hire in businesses to our District 4. Those were for the millage rate increase. Now, for against the millage rate increase, Danielle Humphrey Franklin, 325 Popular Way, Atlanta. We became a city to reduce taxes, cut the budget, reduce salaries, etc. Do not increase property taxes. Patrick Carter, 4088 Butternut Place, Atlanta. As a resident of City of South Fulton, I do not agree with this rate hike. Did we not have a rate hike not more than 2 years ago? What is the rate hike for? What are the plans for the rate hike? Will the rate hike improve our schools? Will the rate hike improve infrastructure? Chauncey Elston, 7324 Simon Street, Atlanta. Please do not increase our property taxes, especially when we are already lack the basic necessities a city should have. The citizens of South Fulton are already suffering enough trying to maintain a respectable community. Trudy Hines, 768 Fitzgerald Place, Atlanta, District 2. We do not agree with the tax hike. This has been a very stressful year with the pandemic and loss of wages. My family has major adjustment financially to make sure that all of our current bills stay in good standings. We can't afford any extra taxes. Christian Johnson, 5771 Deerfield Trail, College Park. I am not in agreement of raising the property taxes, not to mention the proposal to do it in 2 increments. This is increasing the tax burden on homeowners in the midst of this pandemic. I suggest scrubbing the budget to identify cost savings in other areas. I cannot stress how the middle-class working families in this community are struggling to make ends meet. I notice parks and recreation are not being used and the grass not cut as often, trash not pulled as often. Use that money to supplement the tax error from the airport. Alexander Davis, 7990 Ono Road, Fairburn. On October 23rd, 2018, I advised council of the present recession. What are you experiencing is the rain and not the storm. By maximizing your millage rate, you leave yourself unarmed for the coming disaster. No rate increase. Phyllis Priscilla James, 2486 Hughes Court, South Fulton, District 1. No millage rate increase. The economy being as bad as it is, and with so many people out of work and suffering, a millage increase would be an unnecessary burden on residents. Danita Hostcloth, 2631 Rocky Court, District 6. I think the millage rate increase is being considered prematurely. No property tax increase should be executed prior to the need of additional money being completely clarified. Instead of there being a buffet of choices being considered still. In addition, the City of South Fulton Council should first await both receipt of the COVID pandemic monies to be issued out in the coming months, as well as for the economic deterrent still being experienced by homeowners, taxpayers to lessen as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's extremely careless, insensitive, lacking in compassion, opportunist, and setting individuals up to further be unable to afford the full scope of their day-to-day expenses to unnecessarily act too hastily. Debbie Dugan, 8010 Ono Road, Fairburn. Looking at the properties purchased, it appears there are not even enough staff to facilitate an opening. We need to make sure our police and public departments are staffed before any more wants are thought about. We also need badly damaged roads repaired that have been ignored for years. I don't approve of any tax increase for dreams, only for immediate needs in our community. We need to work from the bottom up, not from the top down. Aaron Hodigan, 615 Nina's Trace, Southwest, District 1. I'm a resident in District 1 in the city of South Fulton. I am shocked that the city leaders are even considering an increase in property taxes at this crucial time. I am all for budgeting and increasing taxes where necessary or appropriate, but in light of the predicament COVID-19 has put us in, I think it is entirely insensitive of the city leaders to even consider increasing taxes when everyone is hurting, either financial or otherwise due to this pandemic. I urge the city leaders to delay increasing taxes until at least 2022 so that folks can get back on their feet before being burdened by additional bills and debt. Patricia Rosser, no addresses given, she's in District 5. Before you raise property tax, we need our city fixed. We have so many things wrong. Why are we having to pay for things we don't have? My property is suffering from years of bad sewage drains. I need it fixed. My land was washed away. When is this going to be addressed? When is that going to be addressed? Raising taxes at this time is not right. Michael Bazemore, 2554 LaQuanda Court, Southeast, District 1. I am absolutely opposed to any millage rate. Learn to make do without resorting to tax increases as your default solution. Sonia Hill, 3767 Up Park Drive, District 2. No, we can't afford a tax increase, especially with this pandemic. My taxes went up significantly already when we became a city. I moved to unincorporated Fulton County so I wouldn't have to pay high taxes, i.e. city and county taxes. If I wanted to do that, I would have moved inside the city limits of Atlanta. No new taxes, no new taxes. Karen Ashley, 4640 Dundee Drive, District 2. I'm opposed to an increase in property taxes. I would imagine that most of our community has been negatively impacted by COVID-19 in one way or another, and to raise the millage rate at this time is insensitive. What other creative solutions and or budget cuts has the council perused to help deal with this shortfall, other than overtaxing homeowners? William Dawson, 7205 Bradford Way, Fairburn. We don't see any reason for future height in our taxes. We can't even get proper assistance for our taxes already. I disagree with a tax increase at this point in time. Jewel Johnson, 4660 Orkney Lane, District 1. South Fulton is in good financial position. Based on all the unclear reasons that have been given out, city manager, other council members, the millage increase remains unclear. I would like to thank Councilmember Khalid for helping the public understand that we really don't have to raise the millage rate. I have been told by my council member that if we don't raise the millage rate, we won't have money in the budget for emergencies. Maybe this will show mayor and council that they cannot continue spending taxpayers' money as fast as it come in. I am asking mayor and council not to pass this increase. Sandra Walker, Fairburn, District 3, do not increase the millage rate. Rosalind Woodfolk, 4435 Birdie Lane, District 1. City of South Fulton already has one of the highest rates in Fulton County. We only need to put people in office who will be better stewards over our current revenue. I am against renovating the old building on Old National when purchasing a building makes better sense. Against in-house legal department, against steering business away from City of South Fulton to other jurisdiction, against paying legal fees for council members who violate our trust, against not providing citizens a fair opportunity to provide feedback and have input into the process, against using an economic recession and a pandemic to slip ordinances, bills, laws through, and against elected officials who repeatedly sell their citizens out for their personal gain. I'm requesting that mayor and council not increase the millage rate. Judine Hurd, 4000 Montego Bay Drive, Atlanta. I am opposed to the millage rate increase for the following reason: because the city should not increase taxes its way out of debt or to maintain the current levels of service. Our city should put more emphasis on economic development, attracting the right type of businesses. Last, the most important reason for not increasing the tax at this time is many of our citizens are experiencing financial difficulties. So this is the wrong time to increase rates. Jose Bright, 4224 Caveat Court. I am opposed to increasing the millage rate. Doing so in the time of COVID-19, where many have lost employment or furloughed, and a large percentage of our seniors are faced with increasing property taxes, higher utilities, and needed repairs on their homes. We will see more homelessness in City of South Fulton. This increase is inhumane. Richard Allen, District 3. I am Richard B. Allen and reside at 3925 Wolf Creek Circle. I am concerned with millage rates are increased. As a senior citizen, it can impact those like me on fixed incomes, even if you may be on an exemption status that give you a percentage break on your taxes that a non-senior may not get until they are eligible in many cases. Since revenue collections are down due to the COVID-19 pandemic, citizens laid off, jobs being lost, people can't pay their mortgages, etc. I understand budget funds are short and considerable trimming in a number of departments must be done. This being the case, it would appear to me that a few of the projects proposed in 2020 through 2021 budget should be delayed and put to the next budget cycle, or even shelved for now until economic is better. The city have received funds from the CARES Act. We'll be receiving a large share of free money through Fulton County from the federal government as well. I don't want I don't want to see seniors eventually taxed out of their homes due to hikes in taxes after only being established as a new city for 3 years. Even in this time of a pandemic and with a shortfall in revenue, I implore you as leaders of the city to exercise sound management decisions in handling the city's financial affairs and running our city. This was from an email. I don't have, it says Luther and Robin Dennis is against the property tax increase, District 1. Barbara Williams, District 1. I live in District 1 and I'm very concerned with the proposed tax increase. These are difficult and unusual times as most of us, and an increase in property taxes would be devastating. I have much concern for that as well as current spending. Also still looking for positive changes since becoming City of South Fulton. I see notices for scheduled street cleaning, but no action. Any plans for additional street cleaning, street lighting? Additional charges have been placed on utility bills, etc. Asking you to reconsider a property tax increase, please. Patricia Ramon. We are longtime residents of South Fulton County and we live in City of South Fulton. We opposed the millage rate increase and we have several concerns. What is the millage rate for 2019? What is the reason for increasing the millage rate during such hard times for many residents? Why can't you delay certain projects or cut back on some projects until the economy improves? Do you care about how the residents of South Fulton feel? We are just as important as you are. What justifies telling residents what to do before asking our input and addressing our concerns? We provide most of the money to operate the city. Please don't ignore. This is from an email. I just got the email address and there's no name. It's Jilly J. Willie 18. In the middle of a pandemic, you hike taxes. What are you thinking? Many have lost jobs and even more are struggling to pay bills and mortgages. How could you? Who do you think will have money? This is horrible. Akila Taylor, District 3. To the City of South Fulton, I strongly encourage the City Council and Mayor of the City of South Fulton to delay any additional millage increase. Our new city just recently experienced a millage increase last year and have not seen expanded city services to offset those increased funds. I encourage the City Council to take a second, third, and fourth look at the proposed budget. Take into account the realities of our economic situation during COVID-19 and delay any additional millage increases. Bonnie Rice. These are all, the next ones I'm reading are all through email, so I don't have addresses. Our property tax is already too high. People are going to lose their property with rate increase. Are you concerned about people staying in South Fulton? We will begin to move out. Carolyn Strong, please do not raise our property tax. As you know, many of our communities are made up of senior citizens. I think you should rally your constituents to pressure our state and federal representatives to do their jobs and increase the COVID-19 relief to the cities rather than fold and accept the city's budget deficit as fate. Passing it on to the resident will only cause us more economic hardships. I have made several pleas to Congress, but it takes more than a single person's complaint for them to recognize the political implications of inaction. Please do the right thing by your constituents. Ursula Walker, District 3. So I need clarification. We thought Fulton County Airport was part of South Fulton, and now it isn't. Can this person or people be fired? This was the most important step in becoming a city, to see if we had enough tax money to support ourselves. We pay a lot on more than one occasion for a sustainability report. Was that part of this? And like the mayor said, this should have been reported before. This is half of our tax revenue. And as we were told by the naysayers that y'all would tax us to death. I don't mind paying more taxes, but this is ridiculous and from someone else's mistake, which we cannot afford. This will probably make the news. Linda Decree. I do not agree with raising the millage rate at this time. With people losing jobs and struggling to pay their rent, mortgage, and other bills, this would put more stress on families. Have a heart and think of us. This is not the time. Please do not raise our property taxes. Jacqueline Perkins. I would like to oppose the millage rate property increase. I do not understand why the city of South Fulton would consider raising taxes at this time when we are in the middle of a pandemic and a lot of people are unemployed or underemployed. Most families cannot endure more financial stress along with all the other stress and hardships they're currently experiencing. Surely the city can come up with creative ways to address important needs with the money that we have, or put things on hold that we don't have an immediate need for, as well as make better decisions on how money is spent. We don't need to acquire unnecessary and expensive real estate when we don't even have the basics in place that a progressive city should offer its citizens, such as citywide trash and recycled trash pickup, paved streets with safety aids, i.e. speed bumps and proper traffic controls and enforcement, crime and nuisance control, the elimination of blighted properties, and properly maintained and beautification of common and commercial areas. If you create a great product, people will buy it. There is so much that needs to be done to strengthen and fix the foundation of this city before it can move forward and become the progressive city that it wants to be. It starts with making smart and strategic decisions that benefit, not hurt, its citizens, while creating and showcasing a place where people want to live, work, and play. This is from Greenwich and Patricia Ramon. Oh, this is a duplicate. I read that one. Sheila Fuller, please do not raise the property taxes, especially at this time. Cut the city manager's salary. Sylvia Wilson, I am a homeowner in South Fulton and also a senior citizen. I am against a tax increase that would make it hard for seniors like myself to be able to keep their homes. Please let me know if there is a form or any other paperwork that I would need to submit. This one is from L. Burnell at 5880 Colonist Drive. With regard to the current decision of property tax increases, I am totally against this increase, as we have already experienced increases in utility rates along with increases in other services. The residents are exhausted from the pay more syndrome that seems to be a norm right now. Hopefully in the next election cycle, we can get rid of the entire incumbent governing bodies that seem to watch their personal pocketbooks and not the well-being of this failed experiment of a new city. Mayor and council, that is the end of the public comments for the public hearing. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and let me thank all of the people who decided to make public comments today. I think they've been well heard. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to close the public hearing. However, Madam Attorney, Madam Attorney?
Yes, Mayor.
I think that there is some concern about responding to these comments. I think that maybe the best way to let me know, since you're the parliamentarian, that it would be in order to make a motion to relax the rules. Are you in agreement?
Yes, that's correct, Mayor.
All right. If that's what the body wishes to do, I would entertain a motion to relax our rules.
I move that we relax our rules to allow for each council member to respond to the questions and concerns raised from residents.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we will relax the rules. I will, Mr. Adams.
Mayor, you need to call a vote for the vote.
I'm sorry, that's the vote. Can I get a vote?
Councilmember Rao. Councilmember Rao. Councilmember Gumbs.
Yes. Yes.
Councilmember Willis.
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid.
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
Motion passes.
That passes. Madam Clerk, we will adhere to the 5-minute time limit.
Okay.
And the floor is open, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Adams, change the clock to 5 minutes. Who's the first person to speak?
Well, Ms. Willis, you made this an issue. Would you like to speak first?
Yes.
Ms.
Thank you,
Willis?
Mayor. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for
Yes, I hear you.
recognizing me. I want to first of all thank all of the residents who have sent in comments. We received about 40 comments, and that's good. I wish we would have received more. We are a city of 100,000 residents. I did hear from about maybe 10 of my residents, because I'm including the comments that I heard today, and some reached out directly to me. The residents who have reached out directly to me, I did take a step further with them and do due diligence with them. I pulled their property tax bills and did the calculation of how they would be impacted. The 5 people that I spoke with, out of the 5, 4 of the people are not paying any property taxes. And the reason they're not paying any property taxes is because South Fulton has been a very generous city. South of I-20, there's only one city who allow for senior exemptions, and that's Chattahoochee Hills. Our other neighboring cities, they don't allow for senior exemptions. They have homestead exemptions, but one of our cities don't even allow for homestead exemptions, city exemptions. So South Fulton has allowed for not only homestead exemption, but on top of the homestead exemptions, they have allowed for senior exemptions. And so what that essentially does, it has wiped out the taxes for most of our seniors. And so it's disheartening to hear some of my colleagues put a fear factor in the seniors in our community, and have seniors thinking that we are raising their taxes, we're trying to tax them out of their homes, when in fact, most of the seniors that are 65 or above are not paying any property taxes, because with the homestead exemption and the senior exemption, they don't pay taxes. So with the mill rate increase, they will not be impacted at all. So what I do plan to do is ensure that I send out some type of notification to all of my District 3 residents, letting them know how they are impacted with the mill rate increase that I am in favor of. Now, let me tell you who is going to pay higher taxes. Your councilwoman will. Your councilwoman will pay higher taxes, and it will impact me. And it's going to impact me by $60 on an annual basis. But it's okay, because if $60 will allow for our city to provide better services that I get complaints about on a daily basis, slow response time. They want traffic. They want more. They want the streets repaved. They want, more code enforcement addressed. If it's going to handle all of the things that Mr. Donald outlined in the items that were defunded, I'm okay with investing in my city.
Mhm.
And I would ask, is my time up?
You have 2 minutes.
I would ask that, residents, please get informed. Work with your council members. Pull your tax bills. Go through the calculation. If you don't live in my district and if you would like for me to help you, I'll be willing to do that. But District 3 residents, please rest assured that I would never do anything that will harm you or the city. I am one of the founders of the city who worked hard, who worked with 5 constituent groups to bring us here. We did not create the city to raise taxes. You are correct. We created the city to be in control of our own destiny and to be in control of our taxes, because we were not getting some of the taxes that was due to this area, such as local option sales tax. But if people want more infrastructure, if they want better code enforcement, if they want better public safety, if they want us to do more, it does cost. But it's not costing our seniors, because contrary to what people have put out, we have taken care of our seniors. South of I-20, I repeat, the only other city who allows for senior exemptions is Chattahoochee Hills. City South Fulton are allowing for senior exemptions. Now, we can't have it both ways. If we take away the senior exemptions and some of these homestead exemptions like the other cities, then we very well may not need to increase our millage rate, because that's money that we will collect. But we did not do that. We did not want our seniors to have to pay an extreme amount of taxes. So we collectively, unanimously agreed to allow this city of South Fulton, to offer senior exemptions on top of homestead exemptions. District 3 residents,
Thank you, Ms. Willis.
you will hear from me.
Ms. Willis,
You'll get communication in the mail from me.
okay, your time is up. Thank you so much for your remarks. Madam Clerk, who's next?
I'll just go down the list. Councilmember Rao.
Yeah. Councilmember Rao.
Yes.
You're on the clock. Ms. Willis, your
Get communication.
Thank you. I won't reiterate some of the points Councilwoman Willis made, but I do think it is important to let the public know the millage rate is something that we vote on an annual basis. I think the fact that we are in a pandemic has caused for us to look at a number of issues relative to making sure we can at least maintain the service levels that we currently have in place. One of the key things that Ms. Willis did point out, and I don't think people have thought about, particularly during the early months of this pandemic when people were not spending money, that impacted the local sales option tax, which is the second largest revenue stream for our city. And so that has also impacted our budget. And again, more people are starting to shop. Hopefully this will change over time, but we as a council are going to do what's in the best interest of the city overall. Just like your homes, you want to have some cushion if anything happens. You know, last year we had a couple incidents, or this year, where we had to deal with infrastructure investments that we did not anticipate. If we don't have any revenue in place to respond to those kind of emergencies, projects like, for example, Cascade Road could have been held up, because right now we know that there is no money budgeted for infrastructure. And so I just encourage the public to listen to the information that's being presented. We'll deliberate, but again, our intent is not to bring any additional taxes to the public that we don't have to. And again, hopefully this is short term.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Rao, for your comments. Madam Clerk, who's next?
Councilmember Gums.
Good evening. And again, just echoing the comments of both my colleagues that have previously spoken. I do want residents to be aware that most of the cities across this metro Atlanta area and even in Georgia are experiencing record shortfalls, and cities are having to make these tough decisions in regards to the millage rate. Just know that we are not taking this decision very lightly, and we are concerned about how we can make this work. But again, as we all have mentioned about the impact of service delivery and the things that I constantly hear the constituents asking for will definitely be impacted. Certainly, I've heard from a few residents that have really, made their cases known, and I get it. Nobody wants to feel like they're being priced out of their home, but that's not something that we are doing. We want people to stay and live in the city of South Fulton, but unfortunately, there may be some things that we have to consider. And again, as Councilwoman Rao mentioned, we're doing this in the best interest of the city. We each probably govern over about 17,000 individuals per district, and we understand the needs and concerns of everyone. So we just want to make sure that people understand that we're not taking this lightly at all. There is some, compromise, and when we deliberate, we will come with sensible heads to make the best decision for the city. So just wanted to share that, and that's it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gomes, for your comments. Madam Clerk, who's next?
Councilmember Gilliard.
Gilliard, you're on the clock.
Okay. I've looked at the 2020 budget, compared it to the 2021 budget to kind of sort of get a feel for what we need, what we don't need, and what direction that we need to go in. Last year, I did not vote for the budget, and I didn't vote for the budget last year because I really felt that we needed to cut the budget based on the fund balance. And fortunately, we were fortunate enough to get our fund balance out of the red and into the black. And so that's good. That's good. That gives us somewhat of a cushion that we don't need to go anywhere near. But what really concerns me more than anything is the big unknown. And the big unknown is not only the economy, but it is the pandemic. And just today, Coke is laying off. Delta is laying off 800 pilots. A lot of layoffs are coming, and a lot of people are really, really going to lose their apartments and their homes. So with that as a backdrop, it makes me think more conservatively. And then in addition to that, the largest population of our city is not elderly people. They're people in their, mid-30s. I don't know what you call that group now, the name changes. And so it's a lot to consider. It's a lot to consider when you hold that on one hand, and then on the other hand, you look at the infrastructure that was turned over to us. In some areas, there is no sewage, there are no lights, there is no sidewalks. So there's a lot to consider as we deliberate. And I've heard from a number of constituents the first time that we had the meeting. And then the second time, it was about maybe 4 or 5 today, but I have gotten a lot of phone calls from young people, old people, etc. So I'm gonna vote the way I think I need to vote, given weighing everything, and listening to the people.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Gilliard. Clerk?
Next one is Councilmember Reeves.
Yes, good day to all.
Ms. Reeves, before you start, would you all mute your telephones? We're hearing noise in the background. Thank you, Mr. Reeves, you're on the clock.
Yes, thank you all. And thank you to all the citizens of South Fulton for taking time out to address us in this very important matter. I put out a survey, and thank you all for taking that survey. I was in class earlier today learning of these very same things. And I say that as a shareholder of the city of South Fulton, you can either divest or invest in your community. That being said, we have the obligation to give you the maximum return on your investment. And when you do, you will get the services that you need, that you want, and that we're required to provide. I ran on public safety, and I believe in a safe and clean city. And I believe that they need all the help that they can get at this time. This pandemic has affected us all, personally, in business, and in city government. And we have an obligation to balance the sheet, as you may say. And so the decision that is going to be made today is going to be in the best interest of the city, but more importantly, in the best interest of the citizens of South Fulton. And that is a fact, absolute. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Reeves. Madam Clerk, the next person.
Councilmember Khalid.
Mr.
Hi,
Khalid, you're
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for attending the meeting. I do just want to clarify that I don't believe we in the city have ever raised our millage rates. I remember once that Fulton County had raised their rate and we cut our rate so that people's rates wouldn't go up. And whether I think that for regular people, it doesn't really matter whether we raised the rate or whether the county raised the rate or whether the school raised the rate, whether it was the assessed value of your home that went up or whether you lost an exemption. At the end of the day, many regular people are saying, I'm paying more than I paid a few years ago. And my wages are not going up, but what I am paying on my tax bill, regardless of whose fault it is. And I think that is important to listen to, especially in the midst of a global pandemic and a recession. I do just have a few questions for Mr. Milazzi and Mr. Donald, because I do want to make sure that we are factually accurate. Mr. Milazzi, we did set our current budget with the millage rate of 12.399. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councilman Khalid.
All right, and we are considering a millage rate of 13.399, which would be 1 full mill more than what we are currently budgeted for.
That's correct.
And that would yield about $2.2 million.
That's correct.
Okay, is it possible for me to share my screen, please?
You have 5 minutes.
I understand. Can I share my screen?
How much time?
Mr. Adams.
I'm going to ask that we pause the clock while we're waiting for this.
We always do.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Donald, this next question is for you. This was the list of unfunded expenses that you sent to us. The grand total of the unfunded expenses is $3.8 million. Is that correct?
That's approximately correct.
Okay. So even if we raise for the full mill, we will not be able to buy everything on this list.
Yes, sir, that is correct. I mean, to give you clear clarification, the budget was cut by about 15% in FY20, and then we reduced it an additional 8% in the proposed budget that I sent to council. That complete decrease is that list of services that you just shared.
Okay, and then this next memo was your memo about the public safety building. I am correct, am I not, that we've only budgeted $1.4 million in the URA for that building?
So there's 1.4 million specifically allocated in the URA, but also responded to Ms. Gilliard's inquiry earlier today, where she asked about there's an excess, there's an additional amount of, I think, about 800,000, and she asked what those funds were for. In the URA, the council made estimates. There was not any specific cost allocation prior to. They're all bundles. And so depending on what the cost is and those funds that are allocated to existing capital needs, there may be additional funds that could support the public safety building. And so that process, as you know, is going through the project evaluation phase, which should be done within about the next 60 days.
And and according to this memo, the estimates are between 3.5 and $5 million. Is that correct?
No, that is not correct. So
Okay.
yeah, that's not correct. So what the memo says, because I think you're just pulling a small piece of it, 1.4 million is for the completion of that phase 1 construction, which gets all of the bodies in the building and allows operation and everything. To completely outfit the building, to completely finish it and centralize all services there and go through all 3 phases of the initial schematic design, that is the cost. But that is also against my recommendation to the council. And so from my perspective, I would not take those numbers and utilize them, because that wouldn't be a staff recommendation on how to proceed.
Thank you. And then my final question, the 1.7 million that we are paying for Wolf Creek, that is coming out of our contingency line in the budget, is that correct?
That's where you have it earmarked, but you're not paying $1.7 million for Wolf Creek either. That's also incorrect. The cost for Wolf Creek and all adjoining parcels is 1.2 million. Within the budget that's already accounted for is any additional expenses, whether it be setup, staff, operations, etc., as well as the onboarding of cultural affairs. Those funds was that initial approximately $500,000. You've already brought those folks over and begun operations at Southwest Arts Center. And so those are 2 different buckets of money. But yes, sir, it is in the contingency.
The 1.2 million is from
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just gonna close with this. Like, as a child, whenever I asked my parents for money, the first question they would ask is, what is it for? What are we raising these property taxes for? We have just heard that the most that we can get from this property tax hike is $2.2 million. And we just outlined that there are millions more expenses than what we can even get from this hike. So we're about to raise people's taxes in the middle of a recession, and we haven't even agreed on what we're going to spend the money on. And now going from 11.579 to 13.399 is a $2 million increase. And maybe seniors don't have to pay it, but someone has to pay that. And we can call it the rollback, the 13 point, we can use all this terminology, but once again, people are paying $2 million more than what they paid on their bills last year. We've already committed to purchasing an amphitheater that we probably will not be able to hold concerts in for several months. And I don't see where we budgeted for maintenance of that building. And we know that it has some maintenance issues. Now, I am willing to compromise on a millage rate. We originally were advised by Mr. Millage that 12.899, that $500,000 increase, which would raise $1 million. I think that is a good idea. However, I am not willing to raise property taxes until we can agree what we are actually spending the money on. I am certainly not raising it for a legal department, and I'm not raising it to spend millions of dollars to fix up someone else's property that they will then rent back to us for $18,800 a month. That's sharecropping. And my people, the residents of the blackest city in America, have come too far to go back to that. South Fulton.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Khalid. Mr. Baker, I think you're the last one.
Yep, I'm the last one, and it's always good to be last because everybody has said everything already, Mr. Mayor. So thank you so much for acknowledging me and having opportunity to respond. I normally stay quiet and just allow my vote to do the talking for me, but I've heard my colleagues speak about the investment of more of the money in the city, the people's money. And during this time, you know, it's difficult to make a decision that we have to make. But I understand that we are in the middle of a pandemic, and this means it just not only means that we have to focus on everything that impacts our day-to-day living, but we also have to focus on our homes as a physical element, but also what's going on inside of our homes. You know, the current situation that I'm in and many other people are who have young kids in school, we feeding multiple mouths, 2 additional meals per day. And like, I can't say, some of us are recession proof, and I can't speak to that. And I don't want to just say because I can do it, everybody else can do it. But those who are relying on the unemployment benefits that our President Donald Trump has been holding over our heads, like the State Farm guy with the fishing rod, as we jump up for those extra dollars, just to utilize it as a ploy for his reelection, are in a really, really bad situation right now. And with that being said, the very first meeting to me is always the most important meeting. And that was the meeting when our subject matter expert came up and he told us what he suggested. And in many cases, we're often told, because the 8 of us don't have his background or expertise, because we probably applied for that job because it makes more money than we do. And I just think that we have to lean and rely more so on our subject matter experts. And sometimes we have to tighten our belt to find the help. And, I believe in doing that. I live on a budget. My mom lives on a budget. We both live in the city, and we have to figure out how to make things work. And I just think that our CFO and treasurer, meaning one person, gave us his advice. And I think sometimes, even when it doesn't feel like the right thing to do, we have to rely on people who may know more than we do about specific decisions. So I yield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Big. And thanks to all of you for your comments. I'm sure that those listening audiences have heard you. Before we go to the presentation, I just have 3 questions. And Mr. Millage, you there?
Yes, I'm here, Mayor.
I just want to piggyback on something Mr. Khalid said that was truly right. When is the last time we had a rate increase, a millage rate increase?
We specifically didn't have, as it is, a millage increase, but we have been having millage increase. What happens is most of the times our rollback has been lower than the millage rate. So for us to raise the same money as we did last year, we have to go beyond the millage rate to the same 11.579. That one, it's called the tax increase, although the millage rate is the same, but because we are setting it above the rollback. But
so we have not
never gone beyond the 11.579 since inception.
So we have never voted. When the last time? Let me ask it another way. When is the last time we voted on the issue of millage rate increase?
Every year when there was a rollback was lower than the millage rate of 11.
Let me try it again. Did we vote on a millage rate increase last year?
No. Yes, we did. Okay, we did, because it was lower than the rollback, but it has never gone beyond the 11.579.
Okay.
here with me the tax administrator. Miss Gordon, are you in? Miss Gordon,
Yes, I'm here.
can you comment on that?
Yes, so the rollback last year, and forgive me, I'm pulling it up because I don't have the number on the top of my head, was lower than the 11.57, which is the millage rate we have been sitting at since this last tax year. Because it came in lower, we did vote last year to which was technically considered an increase by the
Yes,
tax law,
Yes, ma'am.
to keep it at the same millage rate of 11.579. So we technically did vote last year for the millage rate, to answer your question, Mayor.
Okay. All right. Two more questions. Thank you so much, ma'am. Two more questions, not from you, Miss. Thank you so much to the Finance Department. Mr. Meadows, Chief Meadows, I'd like to ask you a question.
Certainly, Mayor, go right ahead.
If we were not to raise the millage rate, would you be able to hire more police officers or equipment?
Well, as it stands right now, Mr. Mayor, we would not be able to hire any more without the millage rate increase. It's going to be essential to our growth that we have the ability to add more police officers. But as it stands right now, no, we would not be able to.
Thank you so much, sir. Last question for me. Is Chief Jones there, Sterling Jones?
Yes,
Chief,
Mr. Mayor.
Let me pose the same question to you. If we do nothing, would you be able to hire more fire personnel and or equipment?
No, sir, we would not. Same answer as Chief Meadows gave. That would stunt our growth, and that we would not be able to perform at that without the millage rate.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are all I have. Questions I have. I wanted to make those clear. At this time, I would like to, Madam Clerk, to have the presentation by the City Manager.
Yes, sir, Mayor.
You want to go up to the Irish pub and get some wings?
Your mic is live, Chief.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Wings do sound good though.
Go ahead, Mr. Manager. Go right ahead.
Sir, so we did this presentation on August 26th. This is a recap, but I think in hearing from the public this evening, as well as council, I think the key portion of the presentation is folks are very interested and concerned in if there was a millage rate increase, what services would they receive, what is missing, and what's the value. So I will, Madam Clerk, I will make sure to, the things that are technical, we won't have to spend as much time on because it is available. We'll make sure that folks get it through the YouTube, the full presentation and all of that. But it's probably a good idea to really spend time answering the questions of the public. So if you go to the next slide, you can keep going. Next slide. So just very quickly, for the edification of the public, this is just the view of what is actually the millage rate. And so the millage rate itself, because I've seen that in the chat boxes and everything, is that it represents the amount for every $1,000 of a property's assessed value, what you pay in taxes. And so a millage rate of 5 mills is $5 per thousand of assessed value. And when we do the calculations, the millage rate is stated at 0.005. We'll get to that later. You can go to the next slide. Very quickly, just to let folks know that when the city builds their budget, we start with a zero-based budget and only start with what is required to actually deliver the service. And so we build the budget from zero up until the actual amount of the final budget that you see. And then in looking at that, we look at the millage rate, and the city treasurer makes a recommendation to the city manager's office on how to actually build a budget at what millage rate. And then he looks at that and assesses it and makes a recommendation to the council on whether the millage rate should be utilized based on the proposed budget from the city manager or increased. In this year, for an example, the millage rate was based on the rollback rate. Because we had such a short period of time to do it, we wanted to make sure that we did not that we were as frugal as possible with our funding, and that we attempted to look at the budget based on the coronavirus pandemic. And so what that means is we rolled over a 15% cut over the previous year, and then we reduced the budget by an additional 8% to ensure that we were as cost conscious as possible. You can go to the next slide. And so with that, that was the city's portion. And so folks understand, and I won't spend as much time on this. Again, this presentation is available on the city manager's page. Folks that are watching on the YouTube, please, staff members, make sure you give them a direct link so it's very easy for them to get to the presentation and they can see these things for themselves and then follow up if there are additional questions. But just in general, this is how your property taxes are created. And so you have the assessed value that is done by the tax assessor. The bills are actually coordinated through the tax commissioner's office for coordination. You can go to the next slide. And so with this board of assessors, they actually appraise your real and personal property taxes. I think that's important because people believe that the city has increased the value of their homes. That's actually done by Fulton County. And so the actual growth in your assessments is done at the Board of Commissioners level, at the commissioners level, and that decides on whether the value of your homes have increased. In my previous presentation, I won't spend as much time on it today, but we highlighted that for almost a decade, maybe longer, the Board of Assessors undervalue properties here in the South Fulton area, not just the city of South Fulton, but South Fulton County. And so those assessments increased about a year ago. And so those reasons I will defer, to them on why it took so long to depress those values, but they have now been right-sized. And so your home is more valuable. And so by default, the taxes have increased. I would, as a homeowner, I would not look at that as a negative, because your home is usually your biggest asset. And so the more valuable it is, the bigger and better an asset that you have. And so next slide, please. So again, the tax commissioner actually calculates and prints the tax bills. I think it's been widely publicized that the city of South Fulton and the city of Atlanta and some other cities have taken great care in making sure we look very closely at the various considerations related to tax bills to ensure that they're being considered appropriately, and the appropriate millage rate that not only provides the ability to deliver city services, but isn't a burden on the backs of our taxpayers is considered. And so that's why we've had so many meetings on this and delayed the decision for as long as possible. Next slide. Again, here is an example of the things that go into your city property taxes and how that actual levy is determined. And so there is another slide that's in more detail that I'm going to allow the city treasurer to come back to, but there are a couple of people have asked questions about both Fulton Industrial as well as what services are missing out of the budget, and what a potential property tax increase could allow the council to make a decision on. And so we'll go to those slides. So you can go to the next slide. And so we'll come back to this slide, and we want to spend some time giving the city treasurer the ability to explain specifically how their taxes are computed and give a few examples. But you can go to the next slide for now. And so just very quickly, here are some of the revenues that the city receives. The two largest are at the top: property tax and sales tax. As you know, property taxes are down quite a bit, and so are others like hotel, motels, licenses, and permits. And so that is the reason why the council is considering potentially increasing the millage rate. And so you can go to the next slide. And so there have been benefits that have been provided. Here are just two. And again, we can come back to these. I think we went over them in great detail, but on both for businesses and for our residents, not only the senior exemption, but the homestead exemption, which is unique to the city of South Fulton because we did not have one in the council to ensure that folks had some relief from the increased values that again had been depressed for about 15 years. That was put in place so the rise in values did not negatively impact the bottom line of your taxes as much as possible. And so you can go to the next slide. So in looking at the budget, I think it's very important to highlight some things. And I think there were some misconceptions, which, you know, how they came about. I wouldn't spend any meaningful time on that, but to provide clarity for our residents, you know, when we look at the budget process, there are two processes. You have one that is a proposed budget, and that is the budget that the city manager presents to the council. And so in the city manager's budget is what we call it. We use the rollback rate as the rate and recommendation, which means it's based on the amount of funds or revenue that we received from property taxes last year. And so that budget that was provided, and again, it is on the website under the city manager's page. Staff, please make sure that we're providing it live in the YouTube chat so people can see it as we talk if necessary and if they're interested. But that budget is based on the basic delivery of services. And so it means that after cutting the budget by 15% and then cutting it in 2020 and then keeping those cuts and adding in an additional 8 to 10% in cuts, what are the basic services that can be provided? From there, Mr. Khalid provided the public an overview of the almost $4 million in services that would go unfunded in the upcoming year. So those $4 million in cuts is actually what is not included in the budget. So this is the basic level of services, and that is transmitted to the council to say, hey, at the current amount of money that the city brings in, and based on the impacts of the pandemic, these are the services we can provide. If our residents and our council would like the same level of services or an even expanded level of services, here are the unfunded needs, and based on what the priorities are, you may increase the millage rate up to whatever recommended amount. And that recommended amount then comes from the city treasurer's office. I don't want to quote him and he'll chime in, but I believe his recommendation, his initial recommendation was an increase of about $500,000. And so I'll defer to him to come back and make sure that he's able to clarify, provide any insights. And so you can go to the next slide. And so in the details of the proposed budget, and I want to be clear on this, the rollback rate is the millage rate that will raise the same amount of revenue as the previous year if applied to the current value of the property that was on last year's tax rolls. I heard someone ask a question about Fulton Industrial, and so I'll be as frank as possible so laypersons can understand it as well. When the city was incepted, and I've heard people say a lot of things that are not true, Fulton Industrial was a part of the city of South Fulton. As a matter of fact, the actual, and Mayor, I forget the name of it sometime, but there was a special purpose carve out with Fulton County government that actually showed what city of South Fulton residents were paying in taxes. And so all of those improvements for Fulton Industrial Boulevard was paid for by the backs of city of South Fulton residents. And I'll just say it because I ain't a politician. I can say it as a staff member. Down at the state level, they kept the cap on Fulton Industrial. It was not removed. It was our South Fulton delegation has asked for that cap constitutionally to be removed. And as such, Fulton Industrial should have come over to the city of South Fulton. Instead, during his last term, Governor Deal did not remove it. He actually vetoed it, even though every single one of your council members was at the Gold Dome asking them to remove the cap. And so we had it put on the General Assembly to have it removed, and our residents actually voted at 72% to have it removed. But instead of allowing, but the portion of the bill that was vetoed that would have brought that $6.5 million, which is basically where our gap is, that would have brought that $6.5 million was vetoed on 2 separate occasions. And last year, you know, people can go back and look at the General Assembly and see who it was who shot it down, or I'll leave it to our council members to mention that. But, you know, that occurred last year, where that $6.5 million was not brought over to us, bringing Fulton Industrial, which again, our residents have paid for the last 15 years. It was not brought into the city. And so the reason that those parcels were taken out of the city's budget is because the tax assessor, since it's unincorporated, we cannot rightfully receive those funds. And so I think that tells you 2 things. First of all, everyone knows that that money is rightfully supposed to be with the city of South Fulton, but because of state level decisions, it has not been given to us. And at the county level, they have had to remove those parcels from our tax digest. So it's not that I heard some mention of people doing something wrong or this, that, and the other. Unfortunately, those monies, while they are rightfully ours, they are not legally ours. And it has caused a humongous dent in our budget, which the CFO had went into in detail, which actually reduces the budget an additional 8% beyond what staff has already cut. And so the proposed budget, which is the city manager's recommendation, has all of those cuts included and reduces that budget significantly, removing almost about $6 million in total from the budget. Again, that's the exact amount of money that is associated with Fulton Industrial. You can go to the next slide. And so when people ask what types of things, I think Mr. Khalid showed the full list, and we can make sure to publish that on the city's website as well. It's a public document, although it was only sent to the council. Here is a summary of the considerations that the council is looking at when they consider a millage rate increase. So this current budget that I presented to the council, which again has those significant cuts, it does not have any increase in police or fire. And so we are providing a quality service currently, but it does not meet the expectation of our council or residents. And so we can continue to deliver that same service, and we will continue to make sure that we exceed and provide world-class services within our parameters, but we will not be able to increase the level of service. And that's pretty much across the board what those cuts do. We have figured out a way to maintain the level of service despite those cuts at the rollback rate, but any improvements would likely be unlikely. It also limits our ability to respond to infrastructure emergencies. I think people are very well aware of what has happened at Cascade Road. And listen, I don't want to bash the county. We've got some great folks over there, but I would be a complete liar if I did not present to both my council and the public the years of continual delay of infrastructure investments that were rightly paid for through taxes. And so the Cascade Bridge didn't just fall apart when the city got it. There were not investments in that area for quite some time once transition was announced and on the way. That's the same thing for our buildings, for these potholes that have been in place for 10 to 12 years. And so the city is actually repairing all of those things on the new dime, although they should have been invested in a long time before. And so we have put additional funds in the budget to clear up potholes, to fix the bridges that have failed and things of that nature. But the issue becomes when we have new issues that pop up because the infrastructure had been delayed all across the city. we actually, after we published the budget, 2 days after, there was a large sinkhole, and I don't remember the district. I know I sent it to the council, but that is another unfunded area that we are going to the state, to GDOT, with our hat in our hands, asking for additional support. I think that sinkhole was in District 1 in Dr. Rao's district, but I think she can chime in and let me know if that's correct. We will also, it will limit the maintenance fund for public work services. And so it's been no secret. We've talked about this pothole palooza where we use C-Click Fix to go around the entire city and allow our residents to identify every pothole in the city, and we fix it in real time. That was one of the goals for this upcoming year. Because we are not able to appropriately fund the maintenance fund, that is a project that would be delayed. It also means that there are no new capital projects in the budget. So we do have quite a bit of capital projects in the URA. The council has taken great strides to make sure that there is at least, I believe it's at least 2 capital projects in every district that help to transform the look and feel of the city. But there would be no additional ones beyond what is in the URA as currently budgeted in the budget that I presented. It also delays the implementation of our police and fire beat study. And so it has been well renowned that since 1972, when the county was delivering police services in this area, the beats had not changed. And so we worked with Georgia Tech, and for something that we thought was going to cost about $3.5 million, I think we got them to partner with us, and it was around $50,000 to fully redesign the beats. And we would do so over about 4 years, which is why the chief has asked for additional officers. That beat study and those new officers would also be delayed into future years. And so while we could still maintain the same level of service, what it does mean is that it would take a little while longer for us. Our response times would remain the same. They would slightly improve because the chief has done a pretty good job of realigning his department and providing higher levels of service, but dramatic improvements, which we've seen from year 1 to year 2, would likely just remain stable. It also delays the implementation of a single provider for trash service. While I think the council has been in alignment that a single provider is the preference, and our residents have also, alluded to that as well, there are upfront costs. I think last year they were estimated at about $1.5 million of upfront costs from the city to be able to launch that program, and then we would recoup monies later. Well, currently the model does not cost the city upfront cost except for Merck Miles. And so I believe we do that at about $500,000. And so while we can maintain the Merck Miles model where people can utilize Merck Miles and then have trash service at their home so they can use Merck Miles for bulk, the new process would cost at least $1 million more, and we would not have the funding to be able to implement that within this fiscal year. It also reduces the availability of professional service citywide. I think when we got the, in their wisdom, the council launched a cost analysis and study for how many staff members we should have and how to best deliver services at the lowest cost. That proposal that we received back basically doubled the size of our staff and reduce professional services. But it was recommended that not happen until over a 3-year period. And in the interim, because professional services are capped within contracts and gives us fixed costs, we would do that until the city's coffers grew to where they needed to be. I think Councilmember Gilliard mentioned that, I think when I came, there was a projected deficit of about $25 million, and we're now in the black by about $2 million. So we're moving in the right direction, but we would not be able, we've had to reduce professional services that helps to keep our costs fixed because of the pandemic and making these other decisions. And so we could not implement those proposals as currently budgeted. I think the other piece is that cybersecurity is a humongous concern, not only within our city, but across the country, whether it be from elections or, using our day-to-day and even protecting our funds. And so while we have made some prudent investments early on, the actual recommended investments from IT would also not be able to be implemented as currently budgeted. So this is just a snapshot of the things that the council has to prioritize on whether they are important enough to raise the millage rate or leave the millage rate where it is. And so, Mayor, that concludes my portion, but I do think it is a worthy endeavor to go back to the slide where the city treasurer can actually show the impact of the millage rate and how people actually pay the rate.
We can entertain that. Let's go back to that slide.
And again, if you have additional questions for me, I will, of course, always prepare to answer those. I just want to make sure we went through that because it is a valuable exercise for people to know if there was a millage rate increase, how it would impact the services they receive.
Okay, Mr. Millage, go right ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. One last thing, Mayor. I also wanted to say, across the board, it's not just staff and people, because I heard people say that the council should also take budget cuts. Without any pushback, the council took a 15% budget cut in FY20, which also rolled over into FY21 as well. So these cuts are not just to one side of the house. They are literally across the entire city. And again, details of that are also, we've actually recorded our budget deliberations, and that's also available on the city manager's page so people can see all of the difficult work and difficult decisions and difficult discussions to get us to this point.
Okay, Mr. Millage?
Yes, Mayor. So here is an example of tax impact. This is calculated on the rollback, which is 12.399 mils. And we have two segments of taxes. You either pay tax on non-homestead exemption or you pay it on homestead. Non-homestead, that means you have a home in the city, but you are not staying in. Homestead is the house that you have in the city. So on the left side is non-homestead, on the right side is the homestead. And the calculation is the same. You can put any amount. But the example here is assuming your home is $100,000. Then we have assessed value. The assessed value is where you calculate from. I'm starting on the left side, the non-homestead. So 100,000 times 40, which is 40,000. So that 40,000 is what you are going to pay tax on. Then you have the assessed value will be 40,000. And on that 40,000, we have millage rate, which is 12.399 mils, the rollback. And with that $100,000 non-homestead, you are going to pay $495.96. On the other side, on the right-hand side, fair market value home of 100,000. Again, it will be on the assessed value of 40. So it will be 40,000. But out of that 40,000, you have local exemption of 30,000. And that one is applicable to every residence of City of South Fulton. So if you remove 30,000 from 40, you remain with 10,000. And that's what you'll be paying tax on that, assuming that you are not a senior citizen. If you're a senior citizen, then you have additional exemptions. So 10,000 times the 12.399 mils, you'll be paying tax of $123.99 for a difference of $371. As I said, you can plug in if your home is 200,000, 300,000, but the calculation is the same.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Millage. Any questions pertaining to this slide from any of my colleagues? Okay, hearing none. Madam Clerk.
Mayor, I'm in the queue. If you look at the queue, I'm in the queue.
I don't have the queue afforded me here. I'm in my home at the office. Go
I
ahead.
have a question. So, Mr. Millage, for the education of the millage rate, can you please talk about exemptions. In the city of South Fulton, I mentioned that we allow for the senior basic exemption, which means if you're 65 or over, you get 15,000. And if you're a South Fulton senior and income base, you get 10,000. So that's 25,000 in exemptions. And then also, and that's age 65. But then also we have in the city of South Fulton, and I want to mention that we're the only city south of I-20 besides Chattahoochee Hills that does that. All the other cities, they do not allow for senior exemptions because they can't afford it. And we could take the senior exemption away, and then we won't have to worry about trying to raise money to pay for these services. But we want to take care of our seniors. We also allow for in the city of South Fulton for the homestead exemption, and that's across the board. Everyone is getting $30,000 who owns property. And then there's a 3% cap that voters voted for via referendum to cap any annual adjustments of property taxes. So can you please speak to that and let residents know how that impacts us collecting taxes? Not saying I want to take it away, but when we do allow for exemptions, it does yield us less property tax intake.
So what you have said is correct. If you are senior citizen, you have additional exemptions. So as I said, if your home was 100,000 and you have removed that general homestead exemption of 30, it remains you with 10,000. And if you are senior citizen, they will remove another 15,000. That means you'll be paying nothing on that. And they go up. If you go to 70, as you go up from 65, the more exemptions you get, the less you pay, or you pay almost nothing. So it's true that the homestead exemption that you allowed last year to help the senior reduced the taxes. So it's a revenue reduction, but at the same time, it was an assistance that you gave to your residents.
Okay, Ms. Willis.
And so again, Mayor, I just want to emphasize senior exemptions. I totally support it. I totally support it. We don't want to. I'm saying that because a lot of seniors sent in public comments saying that we were trying to tax them out of their homes, and that's simply not true. This city has taken a position that we want to take care of our seniors, and so not only have we allowed for a senior exemption, which is what other cities are not doing, we have allowed for an additional senior exemption for seniors who have lower income. Thank you.
I hear that, Dr. Rao.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for the information. I'd like to make a motion that we impose a millage rate of 12.899.
Before you get there, can we have the ordinance be read by the clerk before you get into there?
Which would have been my procedural question, Mr. Milazzi. Procedurally, what are we to accomplish today? In terms of scheduling for millage rate?
Before he chimes in, I think what Mr. Milazzi is saying is that before you make any decision related to the millage rate, whether it is a motion, deliberation, etc., you must officially, at every one of the millage rate hearings, you must read the current published proposal, and the clerk normally does that. And so following the presentation, I think Mr. Milazzi was asking that she read that so that you can formally be in compliance with the law, and then you can move forward with your discussion.
All right.
Okay.
You understand, Ms. Brown?
Yes,
okay.
I'm ready.
So Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
I just want to ask Mr. Milazzi one question before he concludes. Like, we talk about it, but we're not, we never hear it directly from you. I just want to know for clarity, is it true that 80% of our budget comes from tax dollars from property tax and only 20 comes from economic development business in our city?
Our taxes, in general, when we talk about taxes, the biggest is the home is not industrial. I think I did present. In industrial, it's getting smaller and smaller, especially with losing business to Fulton Industrial. So it's getting smaller and smaller. So it's instead of you have commercial and you have residence. So you have most of the taxes are coming from residential, not commercial. Then you have other fees, different types of fees, sales tax, business license, all those are taxes. But the major two tax are coming from residential, not commercial.
Okay, Mr. Bailey.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Mr.
This is the
Reed?
third reading for an ordinance to establish the 2020 millage rate for the city property tax for the city of South Fulton at a rate of 13.399 mils.
Okay. Is there any motion?
I move to accept the rate at 3.99 mil. The proposed mill from staff at 3.99 mil.
Don't you mean 13?
I'm sorry, I apologize. I move to accept the recommendation from staff for the proposed mill of 13.99 mil.
13.399.
13.3, I'm writing this down, 13.399 mil. Thank you.
All right, is there any second?
Is there a second?
Okay, here's no second. That fails for elected.
I believe it was a second.
It was a second.
Okay, let me hear you. Who did the second? Mr. Reed, did you do the second?
I will do the second. I thought it came from somewhere else, but I'll second it.
All right. Then it's been properly moved in second. Discussion.
I would like to the council to consider what we've heard for the public and split the difference down the middle and consider a millage rate of 12.899.
I'm amenable to that.
Well, you can make it. The motion is on the floor.
We're in discussion, so I'm just asking for the council to consider what we heard from the public and make the millage rate at the 0.5 mil increase to 12.899.
Okay.
And may I respond? Yes, may I
respond? Any other discussion?
I have additional discussion, but it's a separate issue, so I will gladly let Councilwoman Willis go.
Is your discussion? You saying your discussion is not on the motion that's on the floor?
It is on the motion, but it is a separate issue on the motion. And I think Councilwoman Willis wanted to respond to the 12.899.
I mean, that's fine. You go ahead. Go ahead.
My request would be for this or any other motion for any rate that we would make a commitment to only raise property taxes for the things that are listed on this sheet from our city manager and nothing else.
Okay. Ms. Willis, you want to speak again? Second time.
Yes, and so just to clarify, are you asking that if we the millage rate that we only apply it to what the recommended items that the city manager proposed on that spreadsheet? Is that what's clarified?
Yes.
You're saying?
Yes.
Okay, because I thought that would be the reason for us raising the mill rate.
That building 7490 and the legal department are not on that sheet.
So the building 7490 and the legal department is not on that sheet because it's my understanding they're still working through getting the particulars. So I can't agree to that because it's my understanding it's going to cost us $500,000 to get out that lease. And I don't think residents will want us to throw away $500,000 to break a lease.
Okay. Let me ask the question. Mr. Donald? Mr. Donald?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
On the sheet that was referred to by Mr. Khalid, aren't those deductions anyway?
Yeah, so to give some clarification, those costs are things that were cut out of the budget. And so it would be assumed that if the council were to make an adjustment to the millage rate, you would prioritize based on the needs to deliver the level of service that you deem appropriate. And so that is a breakdown of every specific cut that was removed from the budget. And then based on those, if you would like to put those in, or if you have other priorities, you would prioritize those and direct us into building the budget appropriately that way.
Okay, I think I heard Ms. Rao.
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes. Again, we've heard a lot of comment from the public. I think we all have to tighten our belts, and we recognize we're in unprecedented times. And I just think we should strongly consider trying to manage at $500,000 increase.
Okay. Any other?
My Mayor, can Mr. Donna speak on what that $500,000 increase will, would that $500,000 increase still prohibit? Our police chief just reported, if we don't agree to this recommended staff mill rate, it impacts public safety. It impacts our infrastructure. It impacts our capital project costs. And many residents are asking for these services. And I just think, I do hear my residents, and I've heard residents from other districts. And most of the residents that have been contacted me are totally confused because of the misinformation that was put out. And so I do plan to clear that information out because my residents are for me.
Okay.
But Mr. Donald, can you speak on that?
Well,
before you speak, let me say that, Mr. Willard, that's your second time.
That's right, and I have something to say.
Let Mr. Donald go. Go
you would still have to prioritize. So I think $500,000, according to the city treasurer, and I'll let him confirm that, but it would raise about $1 million or so, and you have about $6.5 million that was cut out of the budget. So no matter where you raise the millage rate, you're not going to meet the pandemic has cut our budget by basically 20%. And so you're not providing a 20% increase. What the $500,000 or whatever decision the council makes just means that more of those services come back on the table. And police being a priority of the council, it appears, would be one of the first priorities that would be met. And you as a council would direct us to increase it at the level you deem appropriate.
Okay, Ms. Gilliard.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Ms. Gilliard.
When I spoke earlier, I talked about going over the budget. And so 44% of our general fund is from property taxes. And 89% of our general fund is for money that we spend for the departments. The additional 11% would be for the 2.2 millage rate increase, 1.7 in contingency, and we already said Wolf Creek is going to come out of that. A capital transfer for 1.7, solid waste 100,000, and of course 911. So we have the ability to, and in comparison to the current year, the amended budget for the current year, the revenue is for this proposed budget with the millage rate, it would be a little over $1 million. So we have the ability, I believe, to keep the course, because one of the things that we're still not dealing with is the big unknown. We don't know what it's gonna be like in December when it's freezing cold with the pandemic. We don't know what the economy is going to be like and what direction it's going in. We might be in a free fall. We don't know. And in a situation like that, you know, the business sense of a situation like that is be conservative and be cool until you have, you know, better footing. It's too much of an unknown. And everything that everyone has said thus far makes an awful lot of sense. It's very, very logical. And it is really, really true what residents want. They want a lot of things. They want a lot of things that we can't deliver, not in a short period of time. And when we think about it, I mean, we're in year 3 and we have accomplished an awful lot with a little, an awful lot. And we keep growing and growing and growing. I just think it's time that we chill for a little bit with the big unknown. That is that scares me, because we just do not know. And when you see large corporations worldwide trying to downsize, something's coming that we don't know anything about. They know, because they know how their businesses have been impacted. And every time the businesses have been impacted, we'll be impacted with either sales tax or property taxes. And even though there will be foreclosures, somebody might have to bail out the banks the way Obama did. And what's going on in Washington right now is even more scary than anything else.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gilgard. Anyone want, excuse me, has anyone else want to speak who has not spoken? Not hearing that. Madam Clerk, would you restate the motion, please?
The motion was to accept, to rate, I'm sorry. The motion was to adopt the millage rate at the 13.399.
Okay, the motion was made
by Councilmember Willis, second by Councilmember Reeves.
Okay, good, for the record. Let's vote, please.
Councilmember Rowell.
Nay.
Councilmember Gomes.
No.
Councilmember Willis.
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard. Councilmember Gilliard.
I'm sorry, no.
Councilmember Reeves.
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid.
No.
Councilmember Baker.
No.
Okay, that fails for lack of 4 votes.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a millage rate at 12.899 mils.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Discussion.
Yes, I have discussion. Once again, I would like for us to commit to only spending the things on that spreadsheet. There are $3.8 million worth of expenses on that spreadsheet. So if we are talking about like a fire engine or vehicles for parks or vehicles for police, that is different than some of the other things that we've been talking about spending money on.
Okay.
And if we can't get a commitment for that, my vote will have to be no.
Is it not the case that the first step is—
I did not recognize you, Ms.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Someone was trying to get in. Was that Ms. Gomes?
That was me. This is a
That
new.
was Rao.
That was me. This is a new. This is a new motion, right? And so we are in discussion, right?
Right.
And so I had a comment. Am I allowed to speak, or was it somebody else's turn?
Go ahead.
I just, at some point we pay our subject matter experts to do a job. I'm not going to tell our city manager, he typically is good about coming back to the council and telling us, what our funding is and what we're spending our funding on. So I'm not going to put any type of restrictions like that on staff. When I know that staff has come back and they do come back and they let us know, if we're making any major expenditures, we have policies in place that they have to come back before council. So I'm amenable My motion did not pass, and so this is the compromise. We do have to raise the mill rate, and I'm going to vote as is, and I think we all should. We gotta trust staff.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I had Mr. Rowell, then I'll come to you, Mr. Baker, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Rowell,
Yes, I just wanted to clarify for the benefit of the public. First, we adopt a millage rate, and later in the month, we adopt a budget, which is based on the millage rate that we adopt. So the staff will come back, and that's a very transparent process to see what we've approved by department. So we will be looking at this mid-month on the final budget that we adopt for the city based on whatever millage rate we vote on today.
Okay, Mr. Baker. Mr. Baker, are you there?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Mr. Mayor, am I? Okay. Well, I just want to say to my colleagues before we make this vote, I didn't vote for the 13, the previous motion, just because I feel like it's too much. But at the same time, if we're going to pinch on our constituents, and we'll be back here next year, once they've calibrated themselves, it's almost like either we don't do it at all, or we just do it all at once and consider the first motion if it doesn't pass, because it's like many people are on budgets, and once they calibrate themselves to increases, I mean, for us to go up again, like we may have to, we may as well do it one time and get it over with, or not do it at all.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. We did have the first motion. It failed for lack of 4 votes. Anyone else who has not spoken?
Mayor, can we do an amendment? Can we vote on an amendment?
You want to make an amendment?
I mean, can we ask the parliamentarian, can we vote on the amendment? I mean,
what amendment are you referring to?
Well, Councilmember Baker was on the prevailing side, so if he wants to,
but I didn't hear him. I didn't hear him make a motion.
Yeah, I would. Well, I don't know if to be clear, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I don't want to do it anyway, but so it doesn't matter. But if we were, that's what my contention was, to just do it all at once. So I'm on the nay side.
Yeah, that's the prevailing side. It was a majority.
Yeah. So what she's trying to ask you, Mr. Baker, is
I understand what she's saying, and I'm not attempting to bring that back. No, sir.
Okay, that's all I want to hear. All right. Okay. Anyone else? Hearing none. Will you restate the motion, Madam Clerk?
Yes. No. I'm raising my hand in the video, and I'm saying yes. I'm having audio problems. I would like to speak.
Go right ahead. You will be the last speaker. Go right ahead.
Okay. We have very few jobs as legislators. And one of our only jobs at every level of government, federal, city, county, is to pass a budget. And I believe that the subject matter experts of how taxpayers want their tax dollars spent are the tax dollars themselves. So in this budget discussion, I am a subject matter expert on what people want their tax dollars spent on. And what I heard in those public comments was public safety, vehicles for parks and recreation, staff, and infrastructure. I didn't hear anybody say, please raise my taxes so we could rent a building or buy a building. I heard, please raise my taxes if you're going to knock down some blighted buildings that have been standing up in my neighborhood for like 10 years. But I did not. And so as an expert on what my taxpayers want, I just want to be clear, because we could make a decision today. We make the process. We are the policymakers. We could decide today we are only going to raise taxes on the things that people said in those public comments that they cared about. And we can go through all the public comments again if we need to, but I'm clear about what I heard and what I didn't hear.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay. Just let me say this before we vote. I think Dr. Rao was absolutely correct. We're setting a budget, a millage rate today, and then we have to come back later and decide how we spend our money. I think that's very, very important to know. Madam Clerk, would you restate the motion, please?
The motion was to adopt the millage rate at 12.899. Motion by Councilmember Rao, second by Councilmember Guns.
Okay, let's vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Baker. Councilmember Baker.
Nay.
Councilmember Khalid.
No.
Councilmember Reeves.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilliard.
No.
Councilmember Willis.
Yes.
Councilmember Guns. Councilmember Guns.
Yes.
Councilmember Rao.
Yes.
The motion passes to adopt the millage rate at 12.899.
Okay. Once again, that's where we are. I think that we have a great staff in this city. And no matter what you all voted on today, I think that Mr. Donald and Mr. Milage and others will make it work. And that's what we have to understand. And I'm very excited about the next meeting where we will have to decide how we're going to allocate what you have just done. So at this time, Madam Clerk, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would we vote, please?
Councilmember Rao.
Yes.
Why not on mine?
I'm sorry. Councilmember.
Go ahead. Continue.
Councilmember Guns.
Yes.
Councilmember Willis.
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid.
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned at 8:01 p.m.
Thank you all so much for being courageous and doing what you're doing and serving the citizens of South Fulton. This meeting is adjourned.
South Fulton forever.